to the chat. Let me see something. Hey, hi, good morning. How's it going? Good morning. I'm your host. I'm Tam Behind the Mic. And I wanted to chop it up and come on my channel before my day gets busy and so forth and so on. I got up a little earlier and I saw Hassan Campbell, how he was praising Leila Wills. Hi, I was praising because that's my girl. That's my girl. I don't think I got this picture online where you can see Leila. I'm Tam Behind the Mic. My MC name is MC Shorty T. I also go by the name of Queen Empress or Empress Queen. I also was with a group Silk and Lace. And I was Lace of the group. I was brought in for a replacement. And yeah, you know, when I finally met up with Leila Wills, it was on a YouTube channel and she was doing this documentary. And as a survivor myself, I developed a relationship with her far as, getting that support and, chatting. And it was like such a relief. And, hearing Hassan Campbell's story, knew that they wasn't lying. I still believe in, oops, something fell. I still believe in Ronald Savage, bee stinger. And I think that we live in a climate that had this kind of behavior and this culture been checked a long time ago, that we wouldn't have a Diddy, not to that extent. So what I wanted to chop it up today is about how we got to win and how, I have medical issues and back injuries and stuff like that. But when I found out that there was going to be a protest and all of the particulars and the facts that Layla had laid out, and these other men, well, they were boys at the time, and they grew up to be men. I knew that I had to participate in even my own story. Um, and me filing my own case, but my case was dismissed for the simple fact that, first of all, I didn't consult with Layla in advance. I did it very impulsively. I was looking forward to being able to amend my complaint, but everything that I said is true. And I had so many different factors that came up because in this day and age, I am very spiritually connected. I believe in God. I have a non-denominational mindset, and I do not believe in all of the churches and things like that. And I have a God of my own understanding, and He's a good one. He deals with light energy, nothing dark whatsoever. So, I'm looking for my little incense. I usually have incense here. All right, let me put my little white candle here. So I went and filed, but I knew that I could go back and amend it. And it was just so many different things that happened, so many hiccups, so many clerical errors that could not be fixed. It was just a mess because I have a background in the legal profession. But however, when it comes to, and I know better, when it comes to pro se cases and you're emotionally attached, there's no way that you're able to really function and take care of your own matter, especially it being so complex. Do I regret doing it? No, because it's the truth. And I've been uncovering a lot of different things, and two of the accusers that have gone on and done things for decades and decades and preyed on young girls, and it may have been, the other sex as well, as I'm hearing, and had all of these different, what they call FOs. Hi, good morning. Is it Pravi Hollies? Hi, peace, blessings to you. Um, it sounds like like the FOs that they talk about with Diddy, but they kind of switched up the names. I never got to that point of having such mind control because I've always had to either protect my mother, my biological mother, or protect myself. I had to survive. And certain things is just made up in my DNA. But yes, I was assaulted as a teenager and then manipulated, and younger girls were brought in. Um, Unbeknownst to me, there was a solicitation because when I started rapping, I started in the parks in Queens, and I discuss it in some of my other previous videos as well. But I've seen a lot of different things, and I've experienced, and I've been able to duck and dodge. And unfortunately, we live in a culture where there's no accountability, and women and girls have never really been protected, including my mom, which gave her a lot of difficulties even raising me or being able to raise my other two brothers who were raised down south. So when I got to a place where I was able to, because I've been in therapy for decades. The last time I encountered these guys and really was apprehensive because I had a demo that I had done and wrote a song that was stolen and used by Russell Simmons, and it was switched up by one of his partners. And ironically, I didn't know one of my cousins was in the music business during that time before Def Jam was up and rolling, because I'm from St. Albans, I'm from Hollis, that area, that region, and I'm from Queens. And, everybody's section is a little different. And I discuss it in my other previous videos as well, um, how it does differ. But everything was all the same. I had cousins that were DJs too and MCs. And, my older cousins really protected me. And I had older friends that protected me, whereas it was like a protective environment. And if I had a crush, my cousin would definitely say, listen, man, I see my cousin might have a crush on you. But if you talk to my cousin, me and you ain't going to be no friends no more. It's going to be a problem. So when I, got introduced to these older cats, I was 13 years old. And I didn't even know that, they were like that. And that they did some of the most horrific things. And unfortunately for now, they've gotten away with it. Because they're very shrewd. And they're not honest. And because my case had been dismissed because of so many different technicalities, and I'm caring for my two grandchildren who they lost their mom, my daughter, almost 8 years ago. And that was really impacted by the living environment. I've had to heal and I've had to forgive myself on so many different fronts. And this situation with children being preyed upon, artists or upcoming artists being preyed upon, it has to cease. And it really is a global emergency. It really is. Sorry about that. Yeah, it really is. So I was glad to hear about Hassan this morning. And at one point, he got mad at Layla because he didn't understand. And I understand, as a survivor, you don't know who to trust. And when you share your story, it's a relief. But at the same time, you know, um, going through experiences, it's very difficult to know who's playing both sides or who's on the other side in the whole gamut. But I believe that things happen for a purpose, on purpose. Truly believe that. And I have been able to grow and acquire a lot of wisdom. And my grandson's birthday is tomorrow. And it's so bittersweet because the holidays and the things that we had to survive and we experienced when she was a little girl, we shouldn't have had. And it's so unfortunate for now because, sometimes people think because your case was dismissed, it was a lie. It's not a lie. It's just that they can't remedy it because you didn't quote the case laws that were applicable, because during that time, it was a lot. And I wish I would have, gone to Layla before I filed. And I didn't. And then, she had referred me to an attorney. Hi. Hi, Chris Kringles. How you doing? I'm just talking about, my experience and the big win for John-Doe, you know, um, because I've seen so much and I know of so many different cases, whether it be in the music industry or just the regular lay person and the families, that they have breeded inward incestus. I don't want to say that word because I don't want to get no strike. And being caught up in there and you thinking as a kid, coming from a background where initially everything was intact and then your parents split and you no longer have the silver spoon in your mouth, and you remember as a kid being staying here, there, everywhere because your mom had some mental health issues due to her being assaulted. That's why I continue to stand on my square, because it's a generational thing that has to be cleansed. And victims should not be ostracized, and these pretties should not be elevated and given all of these awards and different things like that, because they know that they have dirty hands. I remember before, when I was talking to someone, a couple of people that are from the area where they grew up at, and they often had revealed that, the big secret is that there was some kind of conspiracy, allegedly, that they had something to do with the orphan of a rival DJ in Ravenswood. And one of their, I guess, cronies at the time in their group took the charge. Very similar to Diddy and the Shine case, but, a little different. And people have always been afraid. Well, me, I didn't have no damn sense not to be afraid, because I had to grow up as a tough cookie. But what happens is, a lot of times people groom and they manipulate, especially if it's an older person, whether or not it be a guy or whether or not it be a female. People don't understand that they bring the representative first. And they act as though, okay, they want your talent and so forth and so on. And then they're asking you, oh, bring some friends with you. And they know their age and they know they're underage. And everybody's not the same. Sure, you have some people that are promiscuous, females, some are not. And what came to be hip hop should have never been, this culture should have never been breeded upon the grape culture, the M culture. And you have all of these different people that are running around here, and they're trying to tell the story of it. Whereas they weren't there, because a lot of us youngsters, we were in the parks. We were in the parks. We were on the block parties. We were different venues. We wasn't necessarily in the community centers, because of the way that the dynamics of each area was comprised of. We didn't have community centers. So music has always been a focal point in the Black families, in the Black communities. And dance. So here we had someone that, put up a front, and that lured, which is not uncommon. If you look in sociology and you look in the mind of narcissistic and psychopaths, that's what they do. When I look back now from my younger years, hindsight is 2020. And as you get older, you acquire wisdom. I see that, that was like blatant, because when you had plates that blatantly said, suck your, and people thinking that was funny, me being a virgin, that would never be funny for me, because that was like simply disgusting, and it was just a whole different weird thing. And then, I had to learn, you have to be careful of who you call a friend, that everybody got a story and everybody got an issue. And I was so blessed at the time, being abruptly thrown out like a piece of crap, but to be able to stand and rise. But for victims and for survivors, it may be a win for John Doe, but there's so many other John Does, Jane Does. In my particular case, I mentioned a couple of, people that I know of and what I seen. And I wonder, what is the state and what is the mental capacity of these young ladies that were deceived, that were manipulated, and whatever else, you know? I also question too the shrewdness of these individuals. Anybody that really knows them, they'll talk about it. Oh, they're shrewd. But you know what? God got my back. I'm not running to no church that's hiding all of the misdeeds that they have done over the decades and that they have destroyed a whole socialization of people. And, as I spent time off and on YouTube watching a lot of different platforms like Ali Carter, I believe everything she said. And her case as well was dismissed because they did not change any of the laws. They have these laws antiquated, and no one has been big enough and bold enough to invest the money to really change these proceedings, these case laws. I was hoping mine would be. And guess what? You just never know, because we have to hold people accountable. We have to hold institutions accountable. And, you can think in terms of conspiracy, like, with this whole hip hop thing and the timeline, I was told that they wanted me to change my timeline. And I had to say, what? For what? But then I found out it's so many different narratives, regarding it. And now I feel a certain way with the females that was involved with that whole group, because everybody knew. Everybody knew. I found that out, you know, and Melly Mel spoke upon it. So many different pioneers spoke upon it, what they saw, and how it was the Bronx best kept secret. And how many lives, even throughout the world, Brazil, London. It's sad. It's very sad. And here we celebrate it. I don't know. Yeah, sorry about that. Um, that was my friend and my partner, Silk, from the group Silk and Lace. And she was saying, that she's having a hard time logging on in the chat, because I told her, this is a spiritual warfare. A lot of times people are saying, what happened to Kim Porter? What happened to this one? What they don't understand is that we're fighting forces on a spiritual level, the energy. You know what I mean? That people don't necessarily have to give you certain things. Because I remember when I was handling and trying to run around, great day from Silk. Hey, Silk, talented to the hill. I kill it at will. You better run for the hills. Yeah, I had a good time with Silk. We bonded, and again, but I want to say, when I was doing my case, ironically, my daughter had traveled overseas. She had gotten E. coli. She returned United States, and she was in sepsis shock. Thank God that she made it through. Then I caught COVID for a third time, and here I'm supposed to be doing legal research and trying to get an attorney to intercept. And the courts, they should have had provisions for clients or petitioners or plaintiffs to file pro se. By the time I ran my case down in the Eastern District, because I had filed in the Southern District. In the Southern District, which was the wrong venue. By the time I did that, I didn't have time to amend the return because the judge was ordering or ordered to show cause. And I had informed the courts that um my daughter was sick, I was sick, and I was trying to file a motion for more time, and it didn't happen. And then, I took it to the Court of Appeals, but I never got a chance to file a brief or anything. I have bilateral carpal tunnel. So that's the particulars of what happened. But guess what? I work on faith, not by sight. I know that God got me, and sometimes He doesn't want you to go in a certain direction. He'll have that block because He have it covered for your blessings and your directions to go in another way. I think a lot of people thought, well, once Leila wasn't on and we did the protest, just like Hassan said, that Leila girl, she's a badass, just like me. It's like kindred spirits. I was like, yes, she's a warrior. And I have so many instances, and it's just not only about me. It's about so many others. Like, I wonder what happened to those young ladies and that came from England, that were, I guess, I don't know if they were slaves or whatever, because I've never ever seen and experienced something like that in my life. And meanwhile, when my cousins were here in New York and they were DJs and everything, and these particular guys, they know me from the park. And, you know, in the small claims case that they have, the defamation, it's going to prevail. It's going to share a lot of stuff, and I don't say their names now because there is an ongoing case, and you just never know how that's going to flip out. And it'd probably be in my favor too. So now they running around here looking like damn, should I say bozo or Magilla gorillas? One of the two. Like they the champion. I saw one of them one time. I said, Lord have mercy. They wearing crosses. But, that doesn't mean that they have clean hands, because I know and they know that they don't have clean hands. And I guess so. Because I don't have nothing to do with whatever people, say in the chat. But it's just my channel. You know what I mean? What I say. And for the simple fact that my daughter was impacted, that they knew and that there was a hidden agenda. Like, they never do things in clean hands. And then they have this one individual, and I'm not going to call his name. And I mean, he was always cool, right? And I was all right. I was being acknowledged as the Queen's hip hop pioneer. I've scanned certain documents in the Queen's Library. So, and everybody know, even that museum knows that I have intellectual property, probably stuff that they don't have, but they won't be getting it because they've gotten me so many different times, right? So many different times that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Another thing, I remember when Roxanne Shante was doing her comeback, I got a call from the individual saying, hey, this and that and the other. I was like, oh, hell no. Because, three strikes and your ass is out, and you can't keep going to the same thing because you know who they are. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, damn it, it's a duck. If a snake, snake can slither on its belly and everything, and it shed its skin, but it keep on growing skin. So that's it. And I had to learn that the hard way through trial and error. So yeah, I know that I'm not meant to be in a certain setting and situation and that energy. And where it's just so cutthroat and it's terrible because 50 years and 53 years counting into this thing that they call it's a lifestyle. I was like, a lifestyle. Now, when people started, recording certain things visually, I think it was in 83, but you got supposedly Herc started in 73, but you had other DJs that were in 73 throughout the boroughs, right? And a lot of the DJs, they passed away. A lot of MCs passed away. You wonder why, what was the backstory in that, right? So my thing is that everybody couldn't be at one place at one time. But older cats and older people knew what the hell was going on. Because I remember these type of guys, these particular guys, I had never experienced guys talking like fucking girls, gossiping. I remember one time overhearing, and, I always have to hug myself because, not knowing hindsight, you know, not realizing the in depth of manipulation, but, holding my own. Because, like I said, what happened to me and what impacted my daughter, who's no longer here, was horrific, you know. And, like, I had to fight and I had to show motherfuckers, like, look, I don't care. I don't want to be with you. And I don't care whether or not you hold my career. Thank God I never signed no contracts. But my partner Silk, that's in the chat, she signed contracts. And the evidence is there. Nobody got paid. So, even with one of the writers of one of the biggest hits that went to the top 100 Billboard, and then you look at the credits and you know damn well that person ain't write nothing. That person didn't write anything. Artists is being ripped off. Females being discarded. And it makes you think, perhaps when they have these relationships, they hiding behind the females of who they really are. I spoke in my last live about my experience early on before I even had my daughter. And the reason why I connected with her father was because I was on a rebound. Because a lot of guys, or maybe females too, I don't know, but I know what the guys said, that they flip both sides of the coin, but they don't think that they're part of the alphabet, the LGBTQI. They don't think that, you know. And even if it's a boy or a girl that has gone through that by the same sex, that doesn't make them GAY either, or part of the alphabet, because it wasn't like they had consent in doing that. But you have people that are doing this, as with the Diddy thing, on a regular basis, you know, on a regular basis. And they exploit them. And it seemed like to me, a lot of the honorees that are being honored, yeah, the letter crew. Yeah, but help me out. I can't wait until I have all of my stuff set up so then I can have my partner up here so she can help me out, because we'll probably go to StreamYard. And, I got some stuff for y'all, but I need to say, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I need to say that this is a deep rabbit hole. And Allie Carter, summed it up best. She said that they're all involved, and I was like, wow. Then I heard the damn minority speaker, you know, um, got his little kinky stuff going on. And then, people that's hiding behind the damn church. I'm like, I'm too through. Like, when did it become a church? But it had been a culture because Zulu Nation had registered it as a religious sector. And I supposedly was part of Zulu in the 80s by name only because, you know, just like AB said, people affiliated. Well, I didn't affiliate, and I ain't never gave no damn money, because I found out so many different things, and I kind of connect the dots too, because I remember one of the young DJs, Puerto Rican, that was staying up in the Bronx, but for some reason, he had moved to Queens to stay with his father. Go figure. And I don't think he made it big either. So it's like this stuff. Yep. Uh-huh. Growing up. Yep. She said growing up, they were the biggest gang. Yeah. Yep. Up in the Bronx, but we didn't have a lot of that in Queens. Now you got guys running around here. They done collected tapes and they making a living because they got tapes from other people. And they Zulu this and Zulu that. Well, by that default judgment, there's a big old stain. And like I said, you can't tell me that a lot of those females, everybody knew. Because everybody knew about these guys too, you know. And it's taking me time to like pick to find out. And what I need to know, it's going to be revealed. And my particular case, the frenemy, her and her family thought that I was going to amount to nothing, even though I've gone through so many different changes. And I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to survive. I know what it's like to be betrayed. I know what it's like to be manipulated. I know what it's like to be preyed upon. I know what it's like for people not to be held accountable. Like, I lost my daughter on Thanksgiving and my birthday with all of these agencies, involved, and me ringing alarm. And a lot of it went all the way back to when I got reconnected with these guys. And, I think about it quite often because now I have two grandchildren that are orphans. They have me, but they lost both of their parents. And then you have the Democratic Party that's placating all of this stuff. So I wonder now what's going to happen, with all of these players that were capping, about the severity of not knowing, people that's running the museum, and, even Fat Joe talking about, oh, you got some people out here, and even these damn brothers, you know, that got me in court, and I counterclaim, of course, because everything I said is true. And some, and people, and us as a people, how we don't protect our youth. We don't protect our teenagers. We don't protect children. This is a wake-up call. And it really is a freaking crisis. And then, people, they laugh, they giggle at people's traumas. Because I have complex trauma. Who wouldn't? But guess what? I'm still here to tell a story and to make a difference. And I remember even on the job with the city of New York, there was this young man, and I didn't even know that it was going on. I had an idea it was going down like that too, in the workplace. And he wrote The Swinging Chandelier. And same thing, you had to be involved in these escapades. You had to, bow down to power, to greed. It's the same stuff that put us into slavery. Same thing. Same components. History sometimes has a way of repeating itself. And that's what's going down here. And now you got all of these churches. You got Curtis Blow with the hip hop church. He honoring these guys too. And I, laughed about it. You know, he. You got Russell Simmons that was allegedly walking around in Manhattan the other day. How's he able to do that when he have warrants? I'm glad when I did go to Def Jam and they had the metal desk that I didn't tell them that, I was displaced, because you heard different things. When I got displaced, I didn't run to them damn guys. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And the fact of the matter is that those guys didn't have my best interest or anybody else's, because there's someone else that's around them. I ain't seen them get no damn awards, no accolades. They just standing around in the damn middle. Shit is crazy. But I wanted to jump on here because I know Hassan is happy. I'm happy too because I was there. I had my chair because I have now I have an implant in my back from when I got hurt on the job. Yep, twice. But I'm still here. And I remember when I spoke to an attorney that they were looking to see how they could revive my case. For now they can't, because I missed so many deadlines and just a lot, and I got to forgive myself because my plate was full. My grandchildren have medical issues. Every other week I'm at the doctor's office. So do I. My life had been turned upside down, but I'm adjusting my sails. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it again. Even the mayor of New York City, the hip hop mayor, that was an affiliate or associate of one of my cousins in South Jamaica, who've had to heard me rap in my heyday in the parks in South Jamaica, Queens. I remember when he had the reception, the same guys. Oh, these are legends. Got them in the damn Black Caucus. And I was like livid. This is crazy. And then, you got these other channels. They're talking about the white supremacy. It's deeper than the white supremacy. It really is. It's about what's going on with us as a whole. Has it been planned to do that? I don't know. But I know it's power, greed, and money that has really been our downfall. And it continues. It's definitely like Tyler Perry, the have and the have-nots. All of that. Kit and caboodle. But I'm looking forward to divulging more stuff. And I think about those kids at Queen's Society of Prevention for Cruelty to Children. That when I first left home, I was there. One of my good friends, Pam, she had referred me to there. And ironically, crap hit the fan after I was emceeing at Born G's house over there off Murdoch. D was there. D used to DJ. He wasn't emceeing. Hurricane, they were all spinning for me. But, nobody wants to say that. People change. And they definitely don't remain the same. Some change for the better. Some change just to fit in. And my friend Pam, a lot of the children, they didn't make it. A lot of my teenage friends, they didn't make it. I was talking to a young lady that when I was in the hospital, I had almost passed uh from my appendix. And in fact, these guys, I remember when their mother passed away from appendicitis. And again, me and the girl that one was involved with and that I saw and that became pregnant as a teenager and was forced to get rid of it um, at Queensbridge, abruptly, they had us inside the damn ticket booth. And then I think we got paid $5. I said, shoot, if my friend Cricket was here, we should have robbed them niggas because $5 and she was content. I think she still be running behind. Oh, I was like, get out of here. And a lot of my other ventures, she wasn't even there. And I should have kept it like that, But hindsight is 2020. And yeah, so a lot of times, a lot of people that have been involved with them, they didn't get paid, but they're afraid to say something because they're so stuck on the title and the status, and they're afraid that they'll be blackballed. Well, hell, I guess I was just born to be blackballed and blacklisted because I came out damn backwards anyway. I came out Caesarean breach, so, and I'm all right with it because I stand for something or fall for anything. And I'm so glad that I'm cut from this cloth. And every day, I go through changes because having PTSD and complex trauma and having a system that, fails us all the time and us failing one another is so sad. And something that was a safe haven that was so creative, to turn out the way that it has become, and the damage, we won't even know the damage that has been done to so many. And, I even heard about these same guys, how one of them, because they have properties out there in Pennsylvania, because I remember when I was supposed to be working for one of them and wasn't getting paid properly, and how I had to have gangster moves like, you know what, I'm different now. I got a baby. I done been through some crap and I done molded to who I needed to be because for a long time I had changed because I thought when the girls and I had gotten discharged out the group home on Linden Boulevard in Queens, it was my fault because we were going to so many jams and so many events and, I had them with me. Not this other girl that threw away uh intellectual property that probably could have been worth millions and I told her to hold it. Those red flags should have been there. So I constantly give myself a hug, and self-care. And, I have to tap me. I did the best I could for what I had and the knowledge. And that's what my therapist says all the time. I'm in therapy. I probably have spent a lifetime in therapy, but it's very helpful to me. I always think about, thinking it was my fault that everybody got displaced. But then I found out later on that, a lot of the boys and probably the girls were being um, essayed in this children's shelter. And I think that's what makes me who I am today. And that's what makes it so believable. And I think that I probably will go in depth and probably create something um, and maybe some articles because now they have AI, so I don't have to type because my hands, they start to hurt. But create something because I often wonder what happened to a lot of those children. How did they evolve? Were they continuously taken advantage of? Did a lot of them go into some criminality? I remember it was one family, and I'm in contact with one of the sisters, and I really believe that it's a good series too. It is. My life is more than just a movie. It's some series. Oh boy. But her brother is doing a lot of time, and even her sister. Her sister, she kept getting pregnant, and it was a unisex group home, and I ran into him when I used to live in the Bronx. I just wonder what happened. I remember a guy named Sammy. He was handsome. He used to always be playing the pinball machine in 42nd Street. He got thrown out of, I think, the group home in Far Rockaway. I know one guy that we won a 24-hour dance marathon, and I was emceeing with Cypher Sounds and Infinity Machine. I know he made it, but when I left the place I was staying at, it was like, she don't live here no more. You know, they couldn't wait to say that. And then they figured I'm supposed to forgive and be all involved in that. Oh, hell no. So much has happened. So much has happened. But I'll never forget the images in the kids' shelter on Union Hall Street where York College is located. How watching them come up the pathway and looking like their soul was just snatched from them, and them having McDonald's or some kind of fast food, you know. So I'm so glad to have been a part of this Hip Hop Stands with Survivors with Leila Wills. And I know that Leila Wills has had some medical problems as well as myself. And all I can say is take care of yourself, Queen, and how, yeah, we truly love you, because she has really been a champion of this movement. And she gave me the voice that I didn't have and the courage, whether or not people believe it or not, because it is true. And I had wrote on my Facebook, just because of dismissal doesn't mean it's not true. And I believe what don't come out in the wash gonna come out in the rinse. Because I remember, like, in 2012, a young group, and me asking an individual when, again, they were trying to manipulate me. And, because I had my own freelance business, and, you know, still operates, but I don't really run it. And I've lost a lot of money because of their lies, their deceit, their retaliatory actions, and all of that. How one girl was missing. And, everything is a pattern. You start seeing things for what it is, whereas you didn't understand when you was a young teenager, but when you become a young adult and you ask questions like, what did you do? And who's involved? This runs deep. Let's go to YB concert tonight. We ain't going to no concert tonight. I got other things to do. Um, you know, and wondering what happened to their careers. And, somebody else too that came from Philly, during that time, Silk and Lace, and asking, like, what happened to that person? And you seeing how she trying to snug up underneath you and she gets pushed away. It's just a lot, and me having to be put in a situation, a living environment where I had to run for my freaking life. Usually birds of a feather stick together. And that's exactly what it is. So I'm glad and I'm great to see all these players on the chessboard. But remember, but remember, remember that the queen is always the most powerful piece on the chessboard to checkmate. So I have confidence that what it may seem now, it won't end that way. You know, that justice is going to prevail, whether or not it's on the scales of justice. Where my female justice? Somehow, some way. And I'm hoping and praying that one day, if these young girls that are probably adults now, and that's if they're still alive, because I don't understand. I have a question, and I want somebody to probably write in the chat, and I'll probably put a post. Why would someone have floors or some kind of decor removed from one particular house into the other? Is that to cover up some kind of DNA? You know, because now I'm like suspicious, because I don't put nothing past anybody. And I think that, you know, people are capable of doing anything, especially when you've had a rival and you allegedly sought to conspire with people in your camp to take the rap for what you did because you have an opponent. Yeah. So I'm wondering about that. Ugh. So at that, and I got to talk about Star too, you know. But I knew him as Ali Khan in passing. And even though his cousin is Sweet Tea, and I remember when it was Sweet Tea, I think in the Glamour Girls or the Sweet Trio, I went up against them. Well, it wasn't like planned, but I was bad back in the days. And I probably still would be even better once I can, you know, delve into, you know, making music, because music has always been therapeutic for me. And I should have never allowed people to make it silence. My daughter even loved music too. And at the time of her transitioning, you know, she was helping me, and she wanted to go back to school for music and production. She was interested in that. Yeah, but there's a lot of different things that are very suspicious. And Ali Carter, I hope and pray that she's safe, and she probably is. And oh, another thing I wanted to mention. I have been watching and connecting these dots. Remember when R. Kelly played at resorts, casino, and it was a whole heap of first generations there. I remember seeing somebody recording, and it was like they were incited, like with the negative vibration, you know, and looked like a bunch of weirdos, like damn animals. Like one was walking and jumping like this and looking back at the camera, like they were so excited. So, you know, I really think that it is a deep cult. Leila Wills, she got the needle, she hit the needle on the head. That I really believe is much deeper than what we really think it is, you know. And like I feel for some of the females, but I don't have a respect for a lot of them, because just because it didn't happen to their family member, or they say they're going to keep them safe, you don't know what's going to happen down the lineage line. And because I was the only one that was brave as a pioneer, before it even hit wax, to have my seat out there. I had my chair out there. People didn't know. And I had bought some water, and I had to have transportation because can't take public transportation. And how it hurt me so bad when my child passed away and I couldn't get no help. And now I understand, because the current mayor was the borough president at the time. And I knew that he was familiar. And then it all came to fruition. What do I think of Jaguar? Too big to sit in public seating? Who, me? Probably so. That's all right. I'm voluptuous. And I'm all right with it, too. But I ain't that damn big. I could still sit in public seating. But anyhow, what I think about Jaguar, I think Jaguar knows. And I think she's telling the truth. Even though sometimes she go off a tangent, but that's to be expected, because trauma impacts everybody differently. And also, you got to remember that Jaguar Wright, she lost a child. I lost a child. And, it has been concrete studies that your whole brain composition changes. Losing a child is much different than just losing a parent or a partner. It's totally different. And that's why I have to hug myself too, because hell, my brain does not function. It don't operate like it used to. It just doesn't. For me to even try my case to start it off pro se, that was very silly of me. I think that Jaguar is not lying about all of what's been going on, because look at the so-called foundation of it. Look at what happened with the Afrika Bambattaa. And my cousin JC, who was in the music business a long time ago, and his partner, who's still in the entertainment industry, right? He said that all of them, because I asked the question, and they're helping me with some stuff as well, and other options and other directions, because you don't have to necessarily go in those directions, because you don't know what's going to come down the pipe, because you got so many angels watching that have transitioned into the spirit realm. But I think that she knows a lot. She's seen a lot, just like Cat Williams. He told us. And what's your weight size? Kim, you something else. For sure. Look, I ain't worried about it. Shucks. Some people like it voluptuous. Anyhow, yeah, Jag just be keeping it real, and she come from a different approach, And I don't know what she has with the Allie Carter thing, but I believe Allie too, you know. And I said, you know what? Thank God I was hardcore, because it could have been even worse, you know. And you really can't measure survivors and victims' pain, because the pain is all the same. And who get a life? I know. Yeah. The pain is all the same. You know what I mean? And it's different levels of it. So, yeah, I was glad that Jag was out there for the first day of the trial. She was standing up for all victims and survivors, girls, boys, men, women. And I was like, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, you know. And I'm so happy that Hassan, they keep saying, oh, that was his lover. No, he was manipulated. He was a kid, you know, in the dynamics. When you have a breakdown in the family composition and there's a lot of dysfunction, you know, I've caught up with quite a few men that, you know, some of them will cop to saying that they were molested, some of them won't. And how the impact of them having being molested, the shame and the guilt, it impacts them when it comes to their family lives. Anyway, I gotta go put my phone on the charger, and I'm coming right back in a little bit. My phone is dying, so we'll do a part 2 to this.